Well, this is the first edition of the London Rob Reilly Screaming Creativity. And of course, we're starting with an amazing group of people. None other than Stephan Pretorius, the Global Chief Technology Officer of WPP. You know, Stefon comes with, I'm going to look at the notes here, over 20 years of experience. You look so young, hard to believe you've been in the business 20 years, and you've been instrumental in leading WPP into the future when it comes to technology and AI and all that. We're going to get to that. But why don't we start with, who in the hell is Stephan Pretorius? I know you've got a wife and lovely kids. I think you have a boat, but tell us about yourself. Yeah, rental.
I'll give you the quick version. So I grew up in South Africa, and I grew up wanting to be a musician.
What instrument?
Violin.
Violin,
Classical
wow.
violin. And and then I decided I wasn't a very good musician, so I studied law, and I loved law, and ended up doing a master's at Columbia in New York, where I discovered the commercial internet right in 1995. And I went back after that to South Africa and started one of the first digital advertising sales businesses for a big media company in South Africa. So basically like the digital advertising version of ESPN or Comcast in South Africa. And 2 years into that, I realized this is a very small market and I need to spread my wings. So I started my own business and I packed up and went to New York and started this business called Acceleration. 12 years later, I sold that business to WPP and was completely overwhelmed by the scale of this massive company. I mean, Acceleration at its height was 200 people and specialist kind of marketing technology company. And by the way, for a creative person, marketing technology is like three-letter acronym hell. It is incredibly boring, incredibly kind of one-dimensional. So
that's how I'm usually described. So
it's the opposite of Rob Reilly.
Yeah.
So for me, coming into WPP 5 years ago in this global marketing or global chief technology officer role was like was sort of like a revelation. It was like moving into a house of candy and wonderful toys, because just suddenly the whole kind of intellectual landscape just blew apart and became massive and more creative and more interesting. So I'm sort of one of those odd people who I'm having more fun after I sold my company than I had before.
Not usually the case.
Exactly. And I'm not that young. I'm 50.
50?
Wow. I'm 50. Oh, yeah.
Damn,
I just get my hair.
Look at the hair on this guy. I mean, it's ridiculous, this hair. God has punished me with this. Anyway, keep going.
So that's the story. And I'm sort of one of these very fortunate people who I've never interviewed for a job. I went from, falling into my first thing after university to starting my own company, selling that. And it was this right time at the right place. When Mark took over as CEO of WPP 5 years ago, I was working with him at Wonderman at the time. And, we sort of looked at each other and said, we should build a better technology strategy for this group. At the time, there was none. And I think it's instrumental to not only our growth, but also our future, that we execute well in technology.
Well, it's interesting. You talk about Mark, and trust me, I do not want to make this about Mark, okay? We'll give him a couple of minutes of airtime, but he's really smart when it comes to technology, really understands it. He can walk the talk, and I've seen him in front of clients, I've seen him in front of our own people, and obviously you've been connected with him for so long, so I feel like that's one of the keys of WPP is that we have a CEO who cares deeply about creativity, but also deeply about technology. Maybe talk a little bit about when you guys decided, hey, we should start this division, how do you go from 0 to 60 so quickly?
Yeah, I think
that wasn't on the cards, by the way, everybody. So we're going off script already. So
fantastic. That's why I like it. Mark is an incredible thought partner, and he pushes me to really kind of be much better and to simplify things and to think more expansively. He always says to me when I sort of complain about something or have struggled with something, he'd say, I've never said no to you. If you think about that,
really, God, I've heard him say no to me a lot. It's every other day. I finally got Monet as my one get, which was good. So.
It's this idea of the possibility is infinite, right? And this idea that your only limitation is your lack of imagination. I work in technology or I execute in technology, but I think you and I are both driven by creativity. We're both driven by new ideas and, new ways of solving things and, stuff that doesn't exist yet, right? It's sort of a wonderful partnership, right?
Yeah.
And I think we're not going to make this podcast about Rob Reilly, but when you joined, I just felt this amazing partnership, right? And this sort of amazing, like we were two poles of a magnet, right, coming together, which is not something we had before.
Well, it's interesting because it was an added benefit to me, these times when you take some of these jobs, they're done such in secret, and, they try to limit you meeting as little people as possible. And I really didn't get to meet you until we started working together. I was like, oh my God, this is an added benefit. Partly because I like positive people, but I also like people who really understand what they're doing. And I always say, let's just bring Stefan to this meeting, because we know it's going to go well. Because I do think it's about taking things that are complicated and making them easy for people to understand. Doesn't mean they're simple in their nature, but the way to explain them and get people comfortable with technology, because it could be scary. We're at a point where AI, we're still in the we're scared stage of AI. And I think we're moving into, loving it and seeing it as an integral part of our lives. We just were upstairs talking strategy, and you had I had some questions, but you had some great things you were talking about, which is WPP is an AI company. And you had said, WPP is a technology company, but now we've moved to WPP as an AI company. So talk about that for a minute, and then talk about, certainly how it's, going to take creativity and unleash it.
In a narrow sense, most companies now are realizing that if their technology strategy isn't focused on AI, isn't focused on building AI, harnessing it, embedding it in their tools and their processes, then they probably have the wrong strategy.
Yeah.
So in simplistic terms, our technology strategy has become our AI strategy and vice versa. But more specifically, I think our approach with AI in WPP is all about augmenting human creativity. It's not about replacing humans. It's not about eliminating jobs. It's really all about helping people fulfill their potential, have more productive, more rewarding work experiences, and ultimately making better work for our clients. I still believe we are very much in sort of day one of this technology. It's been an incredible year of innovation and pace of change, but it's still quite immature. And so we're extremely excited about the long-term potential, but things change faster and slower at the same time. So people's imagination or people's view of what this technology can do changes very quickly. They see a great kind of mid-journey prompt and they go, oh my God, I can see the future of creativity. But then when you have to then operationalize that at scale and make good quality, rights cleared content that applies to a brand's brand guidelines and is performative and works in the market and works against different channels, that's a whole different process you have to put in place. So we're at the sort of interesting point in the development of AI and the application to marketing where there's quite a big gap between people's sort of almost sci-fi futuristic view of what's possible versus the reality of what's being implemented on a day-to-day basis, right? My job is to close that gap and ultimately sort of help drive to the transformation.
Well, we've been investing in things like AI for years. We're first to the game, and we've been called out by some of our clients of even being ahead of the game when it comes to things like AI and different types of technology. What are some of the projects we're working on, or we have worked on in the last year or so, that you're excited by? Because you're a human too, so you love creativity. You're not just a technology person. So I've seen you talk about them. Maybe for the audience, talk about some of the projects that we've been working on that are out in the world today that I think are best in class when it comes to creativity plus technology plus humanity.
For me, the visual generative AI is the stuff, the visible stuff above the water, right? So, and I think in that category, we've been making, amazing work across WPP where our creative teams are combining kind of a core human insight, behavioral insight, cultural insight, like a great idea, with an understanding of how consumers will consume or sort of, receive that idea, combined with an understanding of the production techniques to make content for that idea, plus then the data that fuels it. And so you get these fantastic kind of, really high impact, body of work, things like the Shah Rukh Khan work for Cadbury's or the birthday celebrations work or the Nike work for, Serena versus Serena. And, these kind of like really, really powerful creative ideas, delivered and produced in a very sophisticated way. I mean, so that's the stuff which I get the most thrilled by. And frankly, it's sort of like an embarrassment of riches, I mean, constantly there's new work coming from our ecosystem, and our colleagues are making this across the world. But then equally the stuff that's sort of below the surface, the more kind of, process analytical based work that we do a lot of in WPP also excites me, right? So I'll give you one example. In the past, if we wanted to tell a client whether a piece of work is good work, will it drive sales, will it increase your brand lift metrics, the process was roughly this. You come up with an idea, then you create an animatic, then you take that animatic and put it in front of a focus group.
Yeah.
They tell you whether it's good or bad, you make some adjustments, etc. Then you go and produce the work, you put it in market, you distribute it through media, you measure it a couple of months later and you see, oh, yeah, that was sort of good or bad, right? In that process, you've engaged with 5 or 6 different agencies and specialists, and in many cases, different people at the client organization, right? Now, very soon, and I mean, all the pieces are lining up today to do that already, is that you can use machine vision to understand what elements of a piece of content drove effectiveness. In other words, was the logo shown in the first 5 seconds? Was the website URL shown in the last second of the video? Was there product placement with a person? Did the person look at the product, et cetera, et cetera? All these kind of design features that actually have an impact on brand lift metrics, right? So you know that. Once you know that, you can then automate the process of using generative AI to make more content that uses the same design features. You can then distribute it into media and dynamically optimize it using DCO, and then pull it back into the analytics engine. Those kinds of it's almost like a kind of a compression of a supply chain, right? Is for me equally exciting because it means that fundamentally we will be able to make a lot more work that actually works for our clients, that actually drives sales, that actually drives their brand growth. And it doesn't come at the cost of the great cultural or behavioral or human insight. It's additive. It's an addition, right? Because what happens today is there's sort of a beautiful core idea that gets crafted, and it's perfect by itself. Yeah. And then it starts hitting the market and just dissipates. It's kind of like it falls apart as it gets into the field, into retail, into shopper channels, into TV. And so we have to ensure that kind of those core great creative ideas get distributed and amplified and optimized, to the point where there's value all the way through the distribution chain, right?
Amazing one. Answer two, we'll actually take that and send it to our clients, because I think people really need to understand, this isn't about losing quality. This is about optimizing quality and making sure it's consistent all the way through. So, all right. So what's the one thing you're really excited about when it comes to AI, and what's the thing that terrifies you about AI? And I'm sure you've been asked this question before, but as the head of technology, I think it's important for our own employees and clients to understand.
For me, what the potential of AI that I'm the most excited about is when it actually solves, fundamental business challenges. Again, one example that I'll give you is in the automotive sector today. Again, in the past, when people were making combustion cars, the time from a design sign-off to the car being in consumers' hands was about 5 years. Yeah. And so you had time to actually make some demo models, take those demo models to the desert, do some shoots, create demand, get your order book filled, and then people would sort of start buying the cars, and 5 years later you've sold your entire line. With electric vehicles, what's happened now is that supply chain has moved down to 18 months. You have no time to make the car, to go and shoot it in the desert and put it on TV or in digital channels and create demand. You have to make the content that drives demand the minute the designs are signed off. Yeah. Basically, you have to go from design to content, a year before the car is actually built, okay? Because you have to fill the order book so that you can actually sell it. What's exciting about that is that, it's like one of these sort of needs must kind of scenarios. Virtual production and the combination of generative AI and 3D modeling is now allowing us to actually make that content. You can make hyper-realistic, beautiful, brand-enhancing content, configured, customized for every consumer, every version of that car, using a virtual production and generative AI technique. And those things for me just feels incredibly satisfying. It feels, we've done something which is, it's really, it's a real business imperative. It's a practical solution. It speeds the time to market. It reduces the cost. I love solutions like that. Yeah. What scares me about AI is actually mostly the potential impact on our collective social conscience. Earlier this year, at our stream event, Yaron Lanier was asked this question about, is he scared of artificial general intelligence, kind of like sentient robots.
Who was this?
Yaron Lanier, the Microsoft inventor. Yeah. He of We Are Not a Gadget. And he said, no, I'm not scared of sentient robots. I'm scared it's going to drive us all crazy. And, there's a there is a sort of a space where if more and more of our content is generated by machines, and more and more of our celebrities are speaking to us as if they're our friends, but in fact they're just deep fakes of those celebrities, and their voices sound like them, their faces sound like them, but it's not them. What happens to our collective consciousness? And I do think that there's not enough thinking about that. There's a lot of thinking about bias and models and fairness and safety and copyright and so on. But I don't think people are doing enough thinking and enough, real critical analysis of what it's going to do to our collective social conscience. Not just in terms of post-truth, but actually in terms of personal affect. How is it going to change how we relate to each other, right, as people? And this is great, right? This is fantastic. Yeah. You and I normally talk to each other through a screen, right? Sure. And our kids are so used to spending all their time in front of screens that I think there's a sort of an emotional connection, a natural human emotional connection that is getting slowly eroded by that. And that's what I worry about.
Well, it's up to us as the leaders to do the best we can with the technology. In the wrong hands is always a danger. But tell us about the program. Tell us about why it's important to you. And obviously, technology is a young person's business, and but what you're doing is amazing. So tell us a little bit about that and set those two up.
I've already been blessed. I mean, one of the first things that happened to me when I got into this job 5 years ago is that I wanted to register WPP.ai, and I went into Internet and I saw that the domain was actually already owned by someone else. And it's this chap, living up in St Albans here in London, and his name was Perry Nightingale. I was like, who's this guy? Why did he register WPP?
Greatest name in all of technology, Perry Nightingale.
And so I was outraged. I researched, who this guy was. I even found out where he lived. And I came to the office the next day and I said to one of my colleagues, I'm completely outraged. I wanted to register WPP.ai and I couldn't because, this person owns it, and Perry Nightingale. And she said to me, oh, he works at Grey. He's one of our agencies. So I called him. And I called him in and I said, Perry, this is not on, you can't register kind of corporate domains. He's like, no, I was just parking it, we knew it was going to be important. And, within a minute, we started having a conversation about AI. And Perry pulls out of his bag this postcard. He'd made a GAN, so basically a style transfer portrait of me in the style of Van Gogh. Gave me a photograph, right?
You're hired.
An AI-generated photograph. Yeah. That was like his gesture to diffuse the situation, right?
Yeah.
And basically a month later he was hired. Yeah. And he became my first SVP of creative technology or creative AI in my team. So Perry's a remarkable individual. He's got an incredible intuition, incredible sort of sense of where things are going. He's an artist. He's a technologist. About 18 months ago or so, Perry was working on a very difficult project for Bastille. He was, having to build this crazy virtual world with all this motion capture. He couldn't figure it out, and he started looking online for solutions. He found this professor at NYU, Kat Sullivan, who was teaching motion capture and choreography at the time, and asked for help. And she, helped him out with the technology. She flew to London to help him on the project, and the next thing, she was hired. And Kat joined his team, our team, and very soon they started having a conversation about, well, WPP needs to bring more young talent into the business. We need to change the shape and the face of the people making the next wave of technology. It needs to be younger, more diverse, and frankly, more representative. No more, white men in beards. We needed more people from different experiences, from different cultures in this. And so, again, the lucky thing about working on a big platform like WPP is that we had the resources then to set up this creative technology apprenticeship program. We finished the first year of the cohort. The next cohort is just going through the selection process, and it is the most remarkable program. But these are all young people, 20, 22, 23. We have one exception. We have an architect who's retraining, who's 50. Amazing. But we have this sort of incredibly diverse group of people making just the most wonderful work. And for me, it's a great experience or example of how bringing new talent with different skill sets and diverse skill sets. One's an illustrator, one's a game designer, one's a dancer, but all using creative technology with their kind of artistic skill sets coming together in one program. For me, it's the kind of the future of technology and creativity coming together. So let me not say more about it.
Sure. Well, you're the Jedi master of all the Jedis. So we're going to cut to the to the chase here. Rapid fire. We got 2 minutes, so you got to answer quick. I know that's not Stefan's his thing. His answers are so amazing. Okay, last song you listened to.
Anouar Brahim Lenui.
Translate that for the rest of us.
Anouar Brahim is a Tunisian oud player, and I spent the entire weekend listening to Arabic music.
I thought you were cool. I mean, it was cool. It was really going well, and now you've dropped some
Anouar Brahim is amazingly cool. He's an amazing musician.
I like Led Zeppelin. Hidden secret talent.
I'm a fantastic barbecuer.
I like that. Yeah. Okay. If you could hang out with one fictional character, who would it be?
Probably Da Vinci.
3 items on your bucket list.
Owning an olive grove, taking a year out to go sailing, and probably living in the southern hemisphere again.
Last question. One piece of advice you'd give for your teenage self?
Don't take yourself so seriously.
I take you seriously in our friendship and our partnership. You're amazing. So thanks for doing the podcast.
Thanks, Rob.
Man. You got it.
It's been fun.
Screaming Creativity is produced by WPP and Hogarth and edited by Rob C. Ward at BCW.